Today I say welcome to Anders Wijkman and Johan Rockström. Anders has many years as a politician in Sweden and also abroad, and a former MEP, European Parliament. And Johan as the head of Stockholm Environmental Institute and also the Stockholm Recilience Center. And you have just published a new book in Sweden, in Swedish, but we are waiting for the English version, The Big Denial, which will be published in English in the autumn of 2011. The book provokes politicians, business leaders and economists because of their denial of the fact that we are close to the edge of some of the planet's key sources.
Shake all those decision makers a bit who sort of have this tendency to suppress information about, deny the 100% dependence we have as humanity on the natural systems.
The key here is to form a bridge between the knowledge base we have on not only the ecological but also the interacting social ecological challenges humanity is facing, and action both in politics and also in business.
A key issue in the book is the unbalance with the nature capital, and particularly the lack of accounting of the GDP of the nature capital. This has been addressed many years, and but nothing seems to happen.
When we exploit and use nature, which is a cost, we do not see that cost at all attributed in our national accounting, in our GDP indicators. So we're actually cheating ourselves, and it's hitting back on ourselves. That's the drama, that we appear to be in good wealth, but in fact it hits us back because it undermines our own ability to generate wealth in the future. But it also, and that's one of our emphases in the book, it generates new risks, because by continuing to, so to say, eat into the ecological capacity of the planet to stay stable, and stability on the planet is important to be able to produce food, to assure clean air, and to generate the ecosystem services that form the basis for economic development.
You cannot use the traditional models as they are. You have to modify them. And that's something that most politicians, most decision makers, if they're not forced to do it, they don't do it.
But if you break down to one of the key issues that you also address in the book about fossil fuel, and to give the politician a little bit of a recognition that Sweden has reduced their impact and also reduced their dependency on fossil fuel. Why do you think Sweden have succeeded on this area?
Well, we have succeeded in one particular area, and that is heating for houses, for apartments, buildings, etc. There we have more or less no fossil fuels any longer. I would say yes, we've done some of the job, and the reason is that Sweden, before many other countries, introduced the carbon tax in 1991, and that was a very wise decision.
And what is now increasingly questioned from scientists around the world is whether we need to question what we mean by growth and focus much more on what is prosperity, what is actually human well-being. Is it to have eternal growth, which, so to say, just assumes that economic growth can go on forever on a finite planet, which of course is nonsense on the long term. So we're trying to bring out a discussion, not to solve the question of how do we deal with the growth dilemma, but rather questioning if we now need to rethink growth. Because one should remember that for the vast majority of the poor on the planet, growth is an absolute necessity to lift people out of poverty. But for the rich minority on the planet, it's not so obvious anymore that continued growth is a necessity to assure human well-being. We don't get happier just because we have...
Maybe we should follow the happiness index in Bhutan.
Well, it's an inspiring example.
But the dilemma is even worse than so, because we realize that we cannot continue to grow the economy the way we have done, because then we will eat into nature's capital, we will destabilize the climate, we will run into peak oil, peak phosphorus, etc. So there's not enough resources and enough environmental space to do that. On the other hand, if we stop growing, or even if we have negative growth, the economic system will crash. This is not only about climate change, it's about ecosystems, it's about development, it's about poverty reduction, and you have to integrate it.
We need a tremendous investment, not only in allowing for development, and not only allowing for sustainable development, but also investments that build resilience to, so to say, unavoidable global change, which is already in the pipeline today. This is that just to understand the situation is a tremendous asset. It's a kind of an insider information for business leaders, because it gives you the very clear insight that we're in for a very jumpy ride where change is absolutely unavoidable, and therefore to statically just go on with incremental change if it's production systems or if it's in policy making is simply not an option. We're simply in for surprise and change at a very rapid pace. I mean, that's the fundamental part. But then the second part, which we take up in the book, is that we give a number of very concrete suggestions of where we can move forward very fast. And one is in the global energy transformation. I mean, moving out of fossil fuels into a renewable energy future, both in the transformation sector and the electricity and industrial energy provisioning sector, is something that we know we can do. The other area is in global food production. I mean, one should remember that the biggest risk we're facing on the planet today is a collapse of the high productive modern agriculture because of lack of phosphorus, because of peak oil, and because of climate change and degradation of agricultural land. And there again is an area where we put forward example after example after example of success stories where we can transform agriculture from degrading monocultures to sustainable, high productive agricultural systems. And these are transformations in two big areas, energy and food, which most businesses depend upon.
We need to reform the economic model. It doesn't deliver. It's not really a good tool today, a good instrument. So we need to broaden the economic model to help the business community to develop other incentives. And part of that has to be done within the political system. We will probably see the development of new business models where you extend wealth, where you keep things longer, where you don't have this sort of constant need for novelty and throw away. If business can only earn more revenue by selling more stuff, then there is no future. So we have to develop new business models. And we are trying to show how that can be done.